There's no downside to keeping people with a roof over their head and doing it in a legal way with proper legal assistance and guidance. So I want to thank all the partners that are here today to help with this and keep Philadelphia sound and safe and secure and people in their homes as happy as they can be. So, Eva, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everybody, for being here. A few hours earlier, a number of us and a number of members of City Council were at the opening of the Hub of Hope, a daytime engagement center for the homeless, just down 2 or 3 levels and under the Broad Street subway. And that's necessary because people lose their homes and don't have a place to be during the daytime or sometimes in the evenings, to get a meal, to get to use bathrooms, to get a shower, to do their laundry, and most importantly, to engage and get the kinds of assistance they need. So, so I think I'm doubly, and I know a number of us are doubly pleased to be here today, because in order to address that issue, we need the Hub of Hope, but more importantly, we need to get to people before they're in that situation. And this project is going to be a very important step in doing that. So we're excited to be here today. I wanted to kind of just to share a few details of the eviction prevention project. With City Council's leadership last June, the City General Fund allocated additional resources, $400,000, to be available for a project. And we were very pleased when the Department of Planning and Development, the Department of Housing and Community Development, is that what you are, Melissa? Anyway, thank you. Division. I have to get it in my head, allocated an additional $100,000. So we had $500,000 available to initiate this project. Through the Managing Director's Office, we issued a request for proposals and went through a rigorous selection process with a number of our team members. And we were really I'm happy to be able to select a team that's led by Community Legal Services as the provider. But it's a very robust team, and I'm going to recognize all of them in a minute, and many of them are here today. But each member brings specific skills and experience and expertise to the table, and they've actually already begun the work, which is really thrilling, just a couple of days ago. So the partners, who are primary, I hope, are all sitting in this front row, right? Are Clarify, which will provide financial assistance, Legal Center for the Disabled, Philadelphia VIP. They are looking to recruit more pro bono lawyers, so that's my advertisement, Sophie. Regional Housing Legal Services, Senior Law Center, and TURN, the Tenant Union Representative Network. Many of these groups and many other people in the room today have been part of a process that's helping us continue to think through this issue more deeply, and that is the, I'm going to get the name probably incorrect, but the Eviction Prevention and Response Working Group, and Mitch Little and Liz Hirsch are here today from CEO and the Office of Homeless Services, and there are many other members of the group here. So as we initiate this project, we also have a very talented team of folks who are looking at what kinds of systemic changes we can make really to improve the process for everybody, both tenants and landlords. But as the mayor said, it's our goal to keep people in their homes, to reduce the number of families who experience a downward spiral of an eviction, which in most cases leads to housing that's in worse condition and often not healthy, as was mentioned, often more expensive, and in the worst of cases, homelessness. The services that are going to be provided by this great team will help tenants navigate through the eviction process, as well as increasing the resources to represent tenants. Just as importantly, though, they're going to be providing more tools that tenants who are not yet in court can access, and that includes a hotline, a website, print materials, and other information that will be available, videos, financial counseling as well. The financial counseling is important because sometimes tenants end up with money judgments, and if they're able to pay those, they might be able to improve their future prospects, and in other cases, they just need to stabilize their finances. They know what kind of housing they can obtain and sustain. With all of these services, as I said, we're also looking to try to make sure that we can test new approaches to policy, to programs and to the systems to overall reduce that number that the mayor mentioned, 1 out of 14 tenants facing eviction in any one year. We also believe that property owners and landlords will benefit from these services, helping make sure that all of the participants in the courtroom are aware of their rights, understand what's going on, understand who's who, and are well informed about the process. I also want to recognize that President Judge Neifeld, Judge Moss, and the staff of Municipal Court have been very open to this process and to these changes and to these new resources being in the court, and we certainly could not do it without them. And so we're coming into their space, and we're asking to have new players in that space and to really change some of those operations. And so we appreciate their support and their openness to that. I'm going to introduce somebody in 1 minute, but I also want to say on a personal note, and I was talking to Judge Rizzo about this, probably 35 or 40 years ago, with a few other people in this room, we were advocating for a housing court and trying to figure out how to inform tenants of their rights. And I don't know that I ever expected the day when the city administration, city council, nonprofits, property owners, I want to recognize Kelvin Jeremiah from the Housing Authority, and others would be able to get together to support a project like this. So for me, it's particularly meaningful to see, again, what our city has the ability to do to come together to solve some tough issues. With that, I'm going to introduce Rashida Phillips, who's the managing attorney for the housing unit at Community Legal Services. She and I have done a lot of work together, and she is really the force behind putting this project together. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashida Phillips, and I'm the managing attorney of the housing unit at Community Legal Services of Philadelphia, which provides free legal advice and representation to low-income tenants living in both private and public housing, as well as significant advocacy locally, statewide, and nationally around issues of affordable housing and protection of tenant rights. We are deeply, deeply thankful to Mayor Kenney, our champions in City Council, particularly Councilwoman Gim, Councilwoman Kenyatta Sanchez, Councilwoman Blackwell, and other members of City Council for recognizing the importance of preventing eviction and thus alleviating poverty in our great city. Philly joins a growing number of cities, such as Baltimore and New York, that have launched similar efforts to address their eviction crises. We are also deeply grateful for our partnerships from the Philadelphia Bar Association, members of the private bar, and Philadelphia's Municipal Court. We would also like to thank all of our partners, the Senior Law Center, Legal Clinic for the Disabled, Philly VIP, Regional Housing Legal Services, Turn, and Clarify, who will be working with us and who are working with us to bring this project to life. This new collaborative project will significantly increase services for low-income and vulnerable tenants that will allow them to stay in their homes and will help the city by preventing homelessness and its devastating effects. The project includes increased representation of tenants by expert public interest and pro bono attorneys, advocacy to help improve our court systems and outcomes, a dramatically expanded and accessible tenant helpline, and outreach to individual tenants at risk of eviction. The project vastly expands the Landlord-Tenant Help Center at Municipal Court and will provide for court navigators, a lawyer of the day program, and dedicated help center staff. The project will also provide financial counseling by Clarify to tenants to help them plan to meet their housing expenses and to be able to afford to make payments on court-approved agreements. Finally, the project provides increased community education in neighborhoods directly impacted by the eviction crisis to educate and empower tenants and communities on their housing rights. The tenants who will get help from this project include those impacted by evictions the most: parents working low-wage jobs, seniors, and people with disabilities. A large majority are Black and women of color, many of whom have children. When something goes wrong with their job, health, or family, they have little to fall back on and become at risk of eviction. The effects of eviction go long beyond the violence of being evicted itself. It affects education, it impacts employment, and other standards of living. Many of the tenants are living in substandard, unsafe housing conditions and need legal help to get repairs and remediation. One example of a tenant who has benefited from legal representation is Juanita. Juanita lived in the same home for 5 years before a new landlord purchased it. The home was in good condition until the new landlord decided to make renovations while Juanita was living there. He started the renovation and then stopped the work, leaving Juanita without heat, hot water, a working kitchen, and other uninhabitable conditions, causing health problems for her and her son. To try and get her landlord to make repairs, Juanita withheld her rent, which was her legal right. The landlord moved to evict her anyway, and Juanita may have been out on the streets if she did not have a lawyer by her side. Fortunately, Juanita was connected with a legal aid attorney who was able to stave off eviction while Juanita looked for a new place to live. Because of this program and the commitment of our leaders and housing advocates, many more tenants will be able to benefit from expert legal representation like Juanita, ensuring access to justice, improving substandard housing conditions, and preventing homelessness and its devastating effects for many more of our city's most vulnerable residents, moving us closer to a goal of safe, affordable, and habitable housing as a basic human need and right. Thank you again to City Council for dedicating resources to protect Philadelphia tenants and for being brave, creative, bold, and unrelenting in ensuring equity, justice, and safe and affordable communities. For tenants who need the resources, you can call 267-443-2500 for the Tenant Legal Aid Referral Line, and you can also visit phillytenant.org to find other resources and information online. Thank you.
And yesterday, Rashida was across the world in Australia and just did 22 hours on an airplane. But anyway, I wanted to ask Councilwoman Gim and other members of council to come up.
Yeah, I'm not Councilwoman Gim, but she told me I should go first, so I always do what I'm told. I'm Councilman Bill Greenlee, for those of you who don't know, and with Councilman Kenyatta Johnson, and I know Councilman Curtis Jones is still here. He unfortunately has to go to another event, and I first want to recognize Councilwoman Gim for her strong leadership on this issue. It's something she took up and fought for very, very hard in City Council with the other members. Just quickly, I'm glad Eva mentioned, you're back, good, Councilman Jones. I'm glad Eva mentioned the Hub of Hope today, because I was thinking the same thing. And the word that kept coming up at Hub of Hope, and it was mentioned here today, is team, because that's what it takes. It takes people working together. Government has a responsibility to try to help people, and I think all of us have tried to step up, certainly with the mayor and the administration, to help where we could, like with the Hub of Hope, like this issue today with helping tenants stay in their properties. But it also takes a team. It also takes all the folks that have been mentioned already and others to make sure that the people get the proper help, the proper respect. And this issue, it certainly is going to help tenants. In my opinion, it helps landlords too, because it makes for a smoother process, a better process, and just fairer for everybody. So again, I'm glad to be part of this, and now I think I was told I turn it back over to Councilwoman Gim, and that's what I do when I'm told to do something. Councilwoman Gim.
Thank you very much. And it's so great to stand up here with my colleagues, Councilman Jones, Johnson, Greenlee, who were really champions. I just also want to acknowledge that council members Maria Quinones-Sanchez, Blackwell, Green, Dom, and Taubenberger are also very much supportive. And really, it was a big council effort in partnership with our advocates and our city agencies. So I am just incredibly proud to stand with everybody here today. It feels like a great victory party for all of us. Advocates, organizers, elected officials, appointed officials, all of us pulling together on a major issue. Last session, when we first started unpacking a lot of what has been going on with the eviction crisis in Philadelphia, we met with advocates and heard from them directly that when we heard that there were 4 times as many evictions in the city of Philadelphia than there were foreclosures, I got angry. I got angry when I learned that illegal evictions were happening off the books. I got angry when we heard about stories of mothers and parents, heads of households who were disproportionately African American, low income, living in substandard conditions, who had to fend this off all by themselves. When the lawyers told me that they were hitting wall after wall with too little funding to represent Philadelphians who needed them the most, we knew that we had to get involved. The advocates, you guys really brought it. Together, we hosted hearings, town halls, and even a briefing on the eviction crisis. We brought in the stories of a veteran who was paying rent for an apartment who was asked to pay rent for an apartment with a hole in the ceiling and the snow falling through during the winter months. We brought stories of a mother who was fixing dinner for her family, left the dinner on the stove only to have it be devoured by rodents in the household before the family could eat it within minutes. We had to talk about a crisis that had to be brought out of the shadows and into the light, not only because we're shedding light on a bunch of statistics or anecdotal stories, but we're trying to change people's understanding of how massive systems can work against vulnerable people and communities. This investment that we worked on that is being announced today is truly transformative. Housing is a human right, and we're trying together as a city to figure out what that looks like and how we do it in the best interest of everybody. We are still far from doing as much as we hope, but we have made a significant step today in announcing that the experiences that people who are too often neglected are not going to go unnoticed. I want to thank all of the organizations and groups in our communities, Community Legal Services, Legal Clinic for the Disabled, PillCop, Senior Law Center, the Bar Association for your incredible dedication and ongoing work. I have to thank the unsung heroes of this process, Eva Gladstein, Liz Hirsch, Mary Horseman, Melissa Long, for your hard work of turning a budget ask into a meaningful and incredible RFP that is really going to change things for people as soon as they walk in the doors of our courtroom. And I can't wait to do more with all of us together. And finally, I want to also, like Eva said earlier, we really want to thank our courts, Judge Moss and Neifeld, for taking leadership in the courts to ensure that both renters and landlords uphold their end of the bargain. And again, you know, it is an incredibly difficult thing to transform statistics into a changing of how we look at one another in this city. But the ways in which we are transforming our relationships with each other, where we humanize and bring compassion to issues, and we realize that this isn't just for those who are neglected or on the margins. This is for all of us in this city. So thank you to everybody who made that happen, and thank you especially to council.
I think we're all available for questions if there are any. No? Then we're available to celebrate. Thank you.